A reading from the Gospel of Mark. Please stand. James and John, the son of Zebedee, came forward to him and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." And he said to them, "What is it you want for me to do?" And they said to him, "Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your glory." But Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with?" They replied, "We are." Then Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink, you will drink. With the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or at my left is not mine to grant, but is for those for whom it has been prepared." When the 10 heard this, they began to be angry with James and John. So Jesus called them and said to them, "You know that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord over them, and their greatest ones are tyrants over them. But this is not so among you. But whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you must be slaves of all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." This is the word of the Lord.
Parker Palmer is a gifted writer on the spiritual life. In his book, Let Your Life Speak, which I recommend to anyone who is going through vocational discernment, he tells of a time when he was offered the presidency of a small educational institution. Being a Quaker, he called together what's known as a clearness committee, which is a group of people who ask questions to help him find his way clear, you might say, to a decision. Well, halfway through their 3-hour meeting, a friend asked Palmer what he would like most about being president. And he began by talking about what he wouldn't enjoy, like wearing a tie every day. And his friend interrupted him and said, "Parker, you're really not answering the question." And so he thought for a while, and then he responded in a way that appalled even him as he was saying the words. He said, "Well, I guess what I'd most like is getting my picture in the paper with the word president under it." No one laughed. After a long silence, his questioner broke in, "Parker, can you think of an easier way to get your picture in the paper?" "Wouldn't it be great if" is often a surrogate for our real question. Wouldn't I be great if? That's the kind of question we all wrestle with, whether we speak it out loud or not. Now, the ambition to greatness is not wrong itself. God has put in us all a desire for significance. But how do we define greatness? There's a lot of talk in our country these days about greatness. "Make America Great Again" is a slogan that assumes a certain definition of greatness, usually without realizing it. It leads some to believe that we need one or more great men, and it's always men, it seems, don't you know, to exercise power over others to fix what's wrong with us and secure peace and prosperity. This is not limited to one party, by the way. This sort of thinking surfaces especially in times of intense social anxiety and cultural change. We look for leaders with supreme confidence who will be our saviors because they themselves don't seem to be beset by the same fears as we, and we want what they have. It's a pattern as old as civilization. And Jesus said it was the pattern of the Gentiles, whose understanding of authority is that they would hold it over the heads of other people, lord it over them. They would lead by ruling, and this ruling often leads inexorably to tyranny. This is the way it's always been. Jesus was a revolutionary who modeled a different understanding of greatness. And he wants his followers then and now to follow his lead on this. He wants his church to learn it. And he must be exasperated with how slow we are to learn it after all he has done to show us. It is not so among you, he says to them. And yet, James and John asked Jesus to grant them to sit one at his right hand and one at his left. They want power and privilege. And don't we? Aren't they just saying what we all would if we just had the chutzpah? Right? Jesus tells them that they don't even know what they're asking. He asks if they would be willing to drink the cup he drinks and to be baptized with the baptism he will be baptized with. Now, this cup drinking and immersion he's talking about aren't fraternity rites like beer pong or taking a bath in the campus fountain at night. This is real. The disciples have been in the school of greatness with Jesus, and they are still more influenced by the surrounding culture than they are by Jesus. And so are we. Parker Palmer should have known better. I mean, he's a Quaker. Quakers believe the church is led by the Spirit of God and not by any human ruler over the people of God. And this is akin to the Baptist vision of the church, where pastors and other ordained ministers are not elevated as a class above the people. We are the people with the people. We are simply set apart for the task of leading and helping the ministry of all the people. We are part of the laity. But when Emperor Constantine issued the Edict of Milan in 313, declaring the tolerance of Christianity in the empire, that set off a reorganizing of the church in society along the pattern of the Roman Empire. So dioceses were created that matched the Roman districts, and bishops were installed to rule over those dioceses, just like Roman prefects would over their regions. Clergy ruled the church in an elaborate hierarchy of power that moved from the top down. Those who were on top were the great ones, and those under them were to serve their superiors. The church, therefore, came to mirror society, and in doing so lost its countercultural mission to reinterpret greatness. The Baptist vision was born in opposition to that pattern by attempting to restore the New Testament model and return to the way of Jesus. In our polity, leaders lead by serving. Our greatness is found in our willingness to drink the cup of suffering that Jesus drank and to be baptized with the same baptism as his, which symbolizes our death to the ways of the world. But we have become power hungry. Baptists were a small minority in early America, and we therefore fought for religious liberty for everyone. But once we became dominant in the South, we changed. We began to seek political power and cultural privilege, and this reached a head in the 1970s when we joined the Gentiles, so to speak, and wanted government to defer to us. We've been perfecting this ever since. Today, we see Baptists claiming the political power to tell others how they're supposed to live through coercion, laws, and the like, instead of living ourselves in such a way that compels them to join us as a challenge to the prevailing ways of the world. Jesus says that greatness is defined by servanthood. This is the great reversal. This is the reversing of the definition of the world's notion of greatness. Instead of being over others, we should seek to be beside others. And that means that some of us need to use the power we have for the sake of those who lack it. For the most part, that means that men in the church need to advocate for women. Straight people need to advocate for gay and trans people. Married for single. Rich for poor. White for people of color. You get the idea. This is not, however, about just giving up power altogether. Because as Mary Potter Engel has said, powerlessness, as much as power, corrupts. It's about, therefore, all of us claiming our rightful power and using it differently. See, the other side is that those who haven't had the opportunity to lead before but now do need to step up and learn how to lead and take their place among us, just as much as those who have been need to make room alongside themselves to do so. It's not about everyone stepping down so that no one takes the lead, no one acts. It's everyone stepping up to claim their equal dignity before God and to serve one another. Let's bring it home. We have many people in our church who are capable of teaching, but we have few willing to commit the time and study necessary actually to do it. All our classes have people sitting in them week by week who are capable but say no to teaching. The same is true for committee service, deacon service, mission service. We struggle to find people on Wednesday nights who will serve with our children to teach children how to serve. Think about that. This undermines the nature of the church itself as we understand it and imperils our ministry. This is a problem with a largely professional class church. We pay our staff, we think, to do ministry for us. After all, most of us pay someone else to mow our grass. We pay for childcare. We pay for whatever we need. But people, there's a point at which this breaks us in terms of what it means to be the church. It changes the whole nature of what we profess about the congregation. And we fall prey to the world's definition of greatness that says, when you are really great, you have earned the right not to serve. During the American Revolution, a man in civilian clothes rode past a group of soldiers who were repairing a small defensive barrier. Their leader was shouting instructions but making no attempt to help them. Asked by the rider why the man himself was not helping, the man retorted with great dignity, "Sir, I am a corporal." The stranger apologized, dismounted, and proceeded to help the exhausted soldiers. And the job done, he then turned to the corporal and said, "Corporal, next time you have a job like this and not enough men to do it, go to your commander-in-chief, and I will come and help you again." With that, George Washington got back on his horse and rode out. Someone has said the Christian life is like the game of tennis. If you don't serve well, you're not going to do well. When we serve well, we are loving well. And when we are loving well, we are making each other better. Great churches, you see, are not great because they have great leaders who do things for the people or get the people to serve them. But rather, great churches are great people who are doing things together with one another for God and for good. When I came here more than 32 years ago, the search committee presented my name to the congregation in a meeting in the chapel. People were worried, probably rightly so, whether a 32-year-old pastor would be up to leading this congregation. After a lot of conversation, an older deacon named Bill Hassel stood up and spoke up. He said, "We're asking the wrong question. It's not about whether he's up to it. It's about whether we are. Great pastors," he said, "don't make great churches. Great churches make great pastors." I know he was right about that. But you know, the challenge is ever before us. Are we going to follow the pattern of the Gentiles and revert to a definition of greatness that views a leader as a person who rules over others, or the Jesus reversal that views greatness as people serving one another side by side? The world needs the church to be the church. And when we learn Jesus' definition of greatness and serve one another with humility and love, then we show the world that there is a way to live that is actually life-giving to all. Amen.